coming agenda. They will destroy New York to make way for the new order. The new order for a new age. And the new race will temporarily rule over that age. Symbols that expose their agenda are hidden in plain sight. iPad Goat 2 portrays New York City's destruction as the new age is ushered in. It all started with the collapse of two towers. The Twin Towers were one of the greatest marvels of the modern age, a symbolic achievement of the human race. Not for its stature and height, but because it carried the image of the Elohim as two strands of DNA. The strands would have to come down to make way for a third to stand in its place, a third monument, a third temple. A temple showing what the human race has become. Hybrids. The two temples would have to be destroyed first. They would have to come down. They would have to be desecrated. Then the rest of the city would follow. Piece by piece, it would be dismantled as the human body succumbed to the new race, the Trident race.
And I pray they will be comforted by a power greater than any of us, spoken through the ages in Psalm 23. Psalm 23. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Today, our fellow citizens, our way of life, our very freedom came under attack in a series of deliberate and deadly terrorist acts. Psalm 23. The victims were in airplanes or in their offices. Secretaries, businessmen and women, military and federal workers, moms and dads, friends and neighbors. Thousands of lives were suddenly ended by evil, despicable acts of terror. The pictures of airplanes flying into buildings, fires burning, huge structures collapsing, Psalm 23, have filled us with disbelief, terrible sadness, and a quiet, unyielding anger.
The two towers had to be brought down. A third tower had to go up. A third strand of DNA. One showing the unity of the two races, humanity and the Benai Elohim, both created by the Elohim, but only one in his image. That is the human being.
These acts of mass murder were intended to frighten our nation into chaos and retreat. These acts of mass murder were intended to frighten our nation into chaos and retreat. Chaos.
They are trying to destroy the image.
Terrorist attacks can shake the foundations of our biggest buildings, but they cannot touch the foundation of America. These acts shatter steel, but they cannot dent the steel of American resolve. America was targeted for attack because we're the brightest beacon for freedom and opportunity in the world, and no one will keep that light from shining. Today our nation saw evil, the very worst of human nature. The search is underway for those who are behind these evil acts. I've directed the full resources of our intelligence and law enforcement communities to find those responsible and to bring them to justice. We will make no distinction between the terrorists who committed these acts and those who harbor them.
Symbol after symbol after symbol. From the Statue of Liberty crumbling to the stock market crashing to the mosque located next to skyscrapers that is being bombed, and even the Brooklyn Bridge, all landmarks that are depicted in iPad Goat 2. The short film also depicts other more cryptic references. Some of them already fulfilled, others are not yet. You might remember Kali on the Empire State Building in New York City. It was depicted in I Pet Goat. There's an allusion to Kali, the dark mother and goddess of destruction, performing a ritual dance with her tongue sticking out. Her appearance in New York precedes the destruction of the city. We also see Mother Mary dressed in black and holding a bottle, with a nuclear bomb going off in the background, a depiction of what they plan to carry out in New York. In the last scene, we see the toppling of a historic monument in New York City, St. Patrick's Cathedral. It crumbles to the ground after an Antichrist character exits from its front door. He will take his position as world ruler only after New York City is ritually destroyed. It will be the collapse of infrastructure, of buildings, of skyscrapers.
Scripture tells us, do not lose heart. Though outwardly we are wasting away, inwardly we are being renewed day by day. For our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. So we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but on what is unseen. Since what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal. For we know that if the earthly tent we live in is destroyed, we have a building from God, an eternal house in heaven, not built by human hands.
Isn't it interesting how all the secret societies and clubs, occult clubs, are in roughly the same area in Washington, D.C.? Whatever's Egypt got to do with the United States of America? Well, as my time in America was drawing to a close, I decided to head into Washington, D.C., into one of the most renowned parts for Illuminati operations. There's quite a lot going on around here, you know. It's no coincidence that these are all pentagrams, because we're right outside the International Eastern Star headquarters, which is the female version of Freemasonry. Green Man, Sonunos. So it's strange, it all seems to be in one area, and it's a very privileged area of Washington, D.C. Freemasonic symbolism that surrounds Washington, D.C. is absolutely undeniable. But today I was hoping to get a peek into a very specific place that lies right in the very heart of the capital city. Well, there's your link to ancient Egypt. These are the secret societies, my friends. Absolutely astounded to see that practically everything that we expose here on RSE had its place on the bookshelf of this Freemasonic library.
Washington, D.C. is a Masonic city. It's laid out by a Masonic call. Every building is laid with its foundation stone by Freemasons. It was laid out as a Sephirotic tree of life in the Jewish Kabbalah, or as a Masonic coffin. Freemasonry is Judaism for the Gentiles.
This painting is of George Washington laying the cornerstone to our Capitol. This is significant because he's wearing his full Masonic ritual regalia. He's got his square and compass.
And then, as I walked into the main temple of this Scottish Rite building in Washington, D.C., right there before me was the black cube of Saturn, the Roman god of time worship.
And the Hebrew writing in the middle says, God said, let there be light, and there was light. And the Hebrew writing in the middle says, God said, let there be light, and there was light.
I soon realized that this building is the Masonic Mecca of America. Masonic Mecca of America. And you can actually trace this symbolism back to the time of rebellion and infiltration that took place at Herod's temple in Jerusalem.
Freemasonry is Judaism for the Gentiles.
So when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by the prophet Daniel, standing in the holy place, let the reader understand. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains.
And the Hebrew writing in the middle says, God said, let there be light, and there was light.
Serpents, you brood of vipers, how are you to escape being sentenced to hell, to hell, to hell?
Forsaken me and have profaned this place by making offerings in it to other gods whom neither they nor their fathers nor the kings of Judah have known. And because they have filled this place with the blood of innocents, and have built the high places of Baal to burn their sons in the fire as burnt offerings to Baal, which I did not command or decree, nor did it come into my mind.
When you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by the prophet Daniel, standing in the holy place, let the reader understand. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains.
That day will not come unless the rebellion comes first, and the man of lawlessness is revealed, the son of destruction.
Standing in the holy place, the abomination that causes desolation. And also the temple represents man, so this is the rise of the Antichrist spirit in the hearts of men.
The Day of Rage that was supposed to happen on July 15th was a hoax. It did not happen. I am not surprised by this. They're pushing race relations to the limit right now. They're exacerbating a near meltdown situation. They're using every available tool at their disposal, including hoaxing, to accomplish their real agenda, and that's the collapse of the West. There was no day of rage in the United States on July 15th. It was deliberate misinformation taken from a similar event that was organized in 2014, when the group Anonymous published a nearly identical list of cities that would be targeted with a Day of Rage. Why did they republish this list without organizing a single protest in the US? Did they even mean to carry it out? Or could this phrase be a code for something else? As we know, something did happen on the Day of Rage, an event that is very important. A coup was attempted in Turkey, the crossroad of East and West, where Islam meets Orthodox Christianity. What was the purpose of this so-called Day of Rage proclamation made by Anonymous and endorsed by Black Lives Matter? Let us remember that the Day of Rage is a Muslim phrase used to describe an uprising against the West and against the modern state of Israel. According to Islam, there will be an uprising at the time of the end, and many people will die. This is a part of paving the way for the coming of the Mahdi. Days of rage will become common manifestations as the Mahdi approaches. The Mahdi is a mysterious character, although there are different opinions about him. Some in Islam believe he will come from the West. A sun really will rise out of the West at this time. A man who will rule over the black banners that come from the East. A man who will ascend to rule the world. But a ritual purification will take place before he does this, in which approximately 2/3 of the world population will die. In her book, Sacred Rage, author Robin Wright documents that the modern rage movement in Islam was created just after Arab countries lost significant land masses to Israel in the Six-Day War of 1967. The time period following this resulted in the beginning of what Robin Wright calls organized sacred rage, a time period for the rise of militant Islam throughout the world. Wright's stunning work uncovers this time period as what appears to be a change in Islam. Mass murdering of Eastern Christians would begin, as would the beginning of attacks on Western society. Suicide bombings, smuggled weapons, jihad, militarizing children, all of these became hallmarks of the sacred rage movement in Islam. And there is a reason behind why Islam is carrying out its rage movement right now, and that is to prepare for the appearance of the Mahdi. The time period just after the Six-Day War truly did mark a stunning shift in the mentality of Islam. Not long after the loss of their land, there were 57 states that organized quickly into what was called the Islamic Cooperation.
Because, it is just wonderful to be back in Oregon, and over the last 15 months we've traveled to every corner of the United States. I've now been in 57 states, I think one left to go.
The Islamic community in the Middle East also began to organize a series of terrorist attacks on Western countries that have continued into the modern day. While Islam has focused its rage attacks against the Israeli state starting back in 1967, they were also organizing inside of the United States. They did not do this quietly. One of the first days of rage was organized by Barack Obama's best friend and mentor William Ayers in 1969. When a 3-day period of anarchy was brought upon the city of Chicago. It was not accidental that William Ayers chose to use a Muslim phrase for his Chicago uprising. Ayers named it the Day of Rage because it coincided with the movement taking place in the newly formed Arab Confederation. A new Muslim empire was born, and they're waiting for the appearance of their Mahdi. That is the origin of the Day of Rage. It has nothing to do with Black Lives Mattering. It is rather a Muslim phrase meant to usher in the Mahdi. And he is here now, waiting for the time of his full unveiling. So why would a Day of Rage be declared on July 15th when nothing happened inside of the US? Could this be a coded phrase for a larger agenda, starting with Turkey? Are we seeing the beginning of the toppling of Western powers? Turkey is the crossroads of East and West, where Christian meets Islam. A country who has moved against Western influence in recent day. A country that the Lord Jesus spoke directly to in the last biblical book. Jesus spoke of persecution, of suffering, and of the end to the 7 churches of the Revelation. The West will be destroyed at the time of the end. According to Albert Pike, Islam will be the tool of choice for the Illuminati to use. It seems the original agenda of the Days of Rage, which started 49 years ago, will be accomplished. The Mahdi, who is Lucifer in the flesh, is here. Those who are born again in Jesus should not fear what is coming, but should stand firm until the end.
Take one, Mark.
How would you describe yourself?
I am a teenage girl. I'm also a soccer player. I'm also an artist. I'd like to think I'm funny. I love hanging out with my friends. I'm also transgender, and I'm proud of that. But you know, in the end, all these things come together and really just make me Jazz. So I am Jazz.
Ugh, look, there's Brody Jenner. God, what a douchebag. I can't believe that came out of Bruce Jenner's vagina.
Bruce Jenner is a man.
No, Brian. That's what the press would have you believe, but he's not. Bruce Jenner is a woman. An elegant, beautiful Dutch woman.
Why did I decide to do a series? People don't understand looking into the mirror and nothing seems right. Putting on clothes that you just really don't identify with. This is about getting to be who you really are. It's going to be quite a journey. We're going to do some good.
A standing ovation tonight for an athlete who became an American hero at the Olympics and may now be changing America itself. Caitlyn Jenner kissing her mother and then walking to the stage at the ESPYs right here on ABC to accept the Arthur Ashe Courage Award.
It's been eye-opening, inspiring, but also frightening. All across this country right now, all across the world at this very moment, there are young people coming to terms with being transgender.
The chiseled sportsman with the all-American good looks setting a world record in the grueling decathlon in the 1976 Olympics.
I know I'm clear with my responsibility in going forward to do whatever I can to reshape the landscape of how trans issues are viewed. And while it may not be easy to get past the things you always don't understand, I want to prove that it is absolutely possible if we only do it together.
Dun 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 dun. Cooper, I am your father.
No, no, no. I am your father.
That's gotta be the worst Vader ever.
Campbell's Star Wars Soups.
How about you be Chewbacca?
Made for real life.
Kohl's has a new commercial for the holiday featuring a brief appearance from a same-sex couple.
7, 8, 9, 10, I love you. Oh, oh, look at me.
I feel love, I see love, like a light from above, and it will never, ever take it away.
Target's liberal bathroom position is getting backlash from consumers. 2 weeks ago, the store stated that customers and employees can use the restroom or fitting room that corresponds with their gender identity. Customer surveys from 2 separate research firms show Target's reputation has since fallen dramatically.
You have man parts, you go to a man bathroom, and if you have lady parts, you go to a lady bathroom.
More than 1 million people have signed a boycott petition from the American Family Association. The group says Target's policy is, quote, exactly how sexual predators get access to their victims.
Moments ago, the Supreme Court and this landmark ruling, the court making same-sex marriage legal in this country across every state in this nation. Going into today, 37 states in Washington, D.C., 13 states illegal, but those 37 states had same-sex marriage, and now that will change in all 50 states. I want to get back to John Karl at the White House because, John, 2 days in a row, yesterday, the Supreme Court, for the second time, handing the president a victory. And as we just learned, the president has tweeted he would consider this a victory at the court as well for his policy.
I'm announcing today that we're ending the ban on transgender Americans in the United States military. Effective immediately, transgender Americans may serve openly, and they can no longer be discharged or otherwise separated from the military just for being transgender. The reality is that we have transgender service members serving in uniform today.
Morning, Ainsley. Morning, guys. The White House, via the Justice Department, is now saying that the same law that protects children from discrimination based either on race or on gender now applies to gender identity. So transgender kids have that same protection, equating gender and gender identity as equally protected groups. This is a big change, although it's important to point out that nowhere in Title IX does the word transgender or gender identity appear. The DOJ doesn't think that matters. Fox News has obtained a letter going out from the DOJ offering guidance to schools, saying a school may not require transgender students to use facilities inconsistent with their gender identity or to use individual user facilities when other students are not required to do so. Breaking that down, a biologically male student can use the female locker room all they want. Extend the logic out, a biologically male student can demand to live in a female dorm room when they go to college. The issue came to a head earlier in the week when North Carolina defied a government order over its so-called bathroom bill. That law requires people to use the bathroom of their birth gender rather than what gender they identify with. North Carolina and the Justice Department are now countersuing each other over this ruling, meaning it's possible that the courts could either totally nullify what the DOJ has put out or they could agree with the administration. At stake, of course, are billions of dollars in federal education money for schools that choose to defy this new decree from the Obama administration and its Justice Department, guys.
A lot of money on the line there.
Yeah.
All right, Leland, thank you very much.
A lot of money that schools can't afford to lose.
That's
And I look forward to new adventures as we grow old together, happy and secure in who we really are. Thank you.
President Barack Obama has appointed Rafi Friedman Gerspan as the White House primary LGBT liaison, making her the first transgender person in the role. LGBT leaders across the country applaud this announcement.
Every year we set aside this month to celebrate the ways that so many lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender Americans have helped to make our union just a little more perfect. We honor the countless nameless heroes who paved the way for progress, the activists who marched, the advocates who organized, the lawyers who argued cases, the families who stood by their loved ones, even when it was tough. Every brave American who came out and spoke out, especially when it was tough. Generations of couples who insisted that love is love. We now live in an America where all of our marriages and our families are recognized as equal under the law.
President Obama designated New York's Stonewall Inn as America's first national monument to gay rights Friday. The Greenwich Village Gay Bar was the site of the Stonewall riots in 1969, when bar patrons clashed with police over frequent raids of the establishment.
And on behalf of the entire Boston City Council, I just want to give a very, very special thank you to Mayor Walsh for flying the transgender flag, this transgender pride flag, the symbol of inclusion and pride and diversity.
Davis sits behind bars for taking a stand and refusing to issue marriage licenses to anyone in her tiny Kentucky county. In doing so, she's become a national symbol for many who oppose gay marriage because of their faith.
Under whose authority are you not issuing licenses?
The gay couple suing Davis had asked that she be fined, but in a surprise move, the federal judge decided to put her in jail instead, saying just a fine wouldn't be enough to bring about her compliance. At the last minute, Davis rejected a deal to allow her deputies to process same-sex marriage licenses that could have prompted her release.
She's been ordered to stay there until she's willing to change her mind, until she's willing to change her conscience about what that belief is.
Within hours of the judge's order, several Republican presidential candidates declared their support for Davis. Mike Huckabee said it removes all doubt of the criminalization of Christianity in our country. Who will be next? Pastors, photographers, caterers, florists. This is a reckless, appalling, out-of-control decision that undermines the Constitution and our fundamental right to religious liberty.
The Ohio Judicial Board has ruled judges cannot refuse to perform same-sex weddings based on personal or moral or religious beliefs. The board also says judges who stop performing all marriages to avoid marrying same-sex couples may be considered biased. Those judges could then be disqualified from any case where sexual orientation is an issue. The Colorado Court of Appeals upheld a ruling that a Christian baker must make wedding cakes for same-sex couples or be fined. In 2012, Jack Phillips of Masterpiece Cake Shop in Lakewood refused to make a wedding cake for a same-sex couple. The couple filed a civil rights complaint. A judge then ruled Phillips discriminated against the couple, and the judge ordered him to change his store policy or face fines ranging from $50 to $500. Phillips appealed the ruling, saying he has no problem serving gays at his store, but says making a wedding cake for gay couples violates his Christian beliefs. A Texas teacher is fighting back after being fired following her refusal to identify a 6-year-old girl as a boy. The 6-year-old is transgendered. Dale Hurd is on this story.
We should be able to stand up for our rights without getting terminated for it.
Lawyers for a Texas teacher have filed a federal discrimination lawsuit after she says she was fired for refusing to address a 6-year-old girl as a transgender boy. Madeline Kirksey and co-worker Akeisha Wyatt say a 6-year-old girl came to the Children's Lighthouse Learning Center in Katy, Texas, wanting to be called a boy. The child's same-sex parents presented her as transgender.
I took a stance, first off, because of my beliefs. I trust God. And secondly, I stood up for the protection of all the children.
The teachers say the child seemed confused about her gender, at times claiming she was a girl and using the girls' restroom. Their attorney filed a complaint on the basis of their religious beliefs, race, age, and gender. A spokesman for the Children's Lighthouse Learning Centers told TV station KTRK via iPhone that he believes this is simply part of a bigger national agenda on transgender rights.
I was very struck and appreciative of the car you saw outside, painted in pride colors, a real act of solidarity and a show of the NYPD's deep connection to this community and to communities all over the city. When we celebrate pride, we do it with particular passion. And this year, we have an obligation to our nation.
Erin O'Flaherty was crowned Miss Missouri early this month. And come September, she is going to be the first openly gay Miss America contestant in that pageant's 95-year history. And I want to show you this picture from this past weekend. It was the Gay Pride event in St. Louis, Missouri. There she is, surrounded by rainbows and lots of drag queens, too, and a lot of smiles.
When you open up a can, you may not notice the lining inside, but believe it or not, that lining may contain a synthetic estrogen. That's right, a sex hormone, and it's in almost every single can we consume. As part of a Fox 5 investigation, we decided to have some of the cans of food you eat every day tested, and wait until you see the results.
This could be your table any day of the week. A delicious plate of pasta, topped with tomato sauce, some hearty soup, a tuna fish sandwich, a side of green peas. Food that millions of Americans consume daily. But wait until you see what could be inside your food.
This is a chemical that the people who put it into plastic were insane.
His name is Dr. Fred Vomsaal. He's a professor of biology at the University of Missouri. You may not know his name, but you probably know his work. He recently created a huge uproar within the scientific community after releasing a study on plastic baby bottles and the controversial chemical many of these bottles are made with, called bisphenol A.
This is a chemical that in 1936 was considered for use as an estrogen drug. Then in the 1950s, some tricky chemists found that they could link this chemical together and it creates a hard, clear, glass-like plastic.
And this glass-like plastic is sprayed into cans we buy every day.
The only problem with that is the plastic is then made from a sex hormone.
And it's virtually in every can of food we consume. And according to Dr. Vomsaal, bisphenol A is a big problem because he says it leaches into the foods we eat.
And when you heat this plastic or put tomato sauce in it, the acid degrades the plastic, and then the food that's in there is full of this sex hormone.
So we decided to do our own tests of common foods we eat every day. We went to different grocery stores and purchased tomato sauces, soups, peas, tuna fish, as well as plastic containers and food wraps. We then sent them all to Dr. Vomsaal's lab in Missouri for testing.
The food was removed from the cans. The cans were all cleaned, washed multiple times with water, allowed to dry, and then we put ultra pure water in the cans to determine how stable the lining of the can was when just faced with water being in contact with it for 24 hours.
The results were concerning.
Every single product here put out an amount of bisphenol A that would be in the danger zone.
The highest levels measured in micrograms were found in cans of Hunt's tomato sauce, followed by Red Pack, Del Monte peas, the Starkist tuna, and the Rubbermaid plastic container.
This is a chemical that can alter the way your cells function at below a trillionth of a gram.
Schools in Fairfax County, Virginia are preparing to include gender identity in its curriculum for grades 7 through 12. The family life education lessons will include teachings on heterosexual, homosexual, bisexual, and transgender identity. Andrea Lafferty of Traditional Values Coalition joins us from our Washington bureau to talk more about this controversial subject. Andrea, thanks for joining us.
It's great to be with you. Thank you.
First of all, tell us about this curriculum and the motivation behind it.
Well, it's interesting. The school board voted earlier in May to add gender identity. It's not a part of the state law. It's not a part of the state school board instruction, but they've decided to add it against the will of many of the parents. Starting in kindergarten, they'll talk to them about same-sex or gay marriage. And the parents will not be able to opt out. In 8th grade, they will be discussing, let me just say, Bill Clinton's activity along with oral and anal. in 8th grade, and most people, and they've lowered it from 9th grade, or teaching 4th graders about the word incest. Well, the difference between sexual orientation and gender identity is sexual orientation is who you have sex with and how you have sex. Gender identity is who you are, male, female. Are you born male or female? Are you born nothing? And they want to break down those definitions so you're no longer male or female as God created us. The night of the vote on gender identity, the police, they hired a special police force, security. They actually locked 200 parents out so they couldn't get in, even though there was standing room in the back. Parents need to be very engaged. Parents need to know what is going on in their local communities. We're seeing just an onslaught. This thing is snowballing. And so we would just encourage you to protect your children and know what they're being taught. Here in Fairfax County, we were told that the Office of Civil Rights, Department of Education and Department of Justice would see to it that our federal tax dollars were pulled. Those monies that are meant to help educate and provide for poor children, children that may be going without meals, that funding would be taken. So here we hear all this outcry about Republicans are, not looking out for kids, when in fact, when the president and his allies want to push this gender identity agenda, they don't care about poor children.
Henri Fuentes was tired of being a spectator.
I did try out last year. I didn't make it. I feel like I didn't work as hard last year as I did this year.
Go, Kyle. Henri's hard work paid off. She made Denair High School's varsity cheerleading squad. But soon after making the team, Henri made a decision that would also make history in Denair.
I wasn't sure whether I wanted to be under the lights in a skirt, but then I finally decided. I was like, no, I want to wear the girl uniform.
Born Henry, Henri says she always felt like a girl and would wear female clothes. But she officially started living as a girl this year.
The Disney Channel sitcom Good Luck Charlie introduced the network's first openly gay characters. Parents of the young Charlie have set up a play date with one of Charlie's friends named Taylor, and their Taylor is and just happens to have 2 moms. So Disney reps released a statement saying, like all Disney Channel programming, it was developed to be relevant to kids and families around the world and to reflect the themes of diversity and inclusiveness.
I was always a really rebellious kid. I acted up at school, with family. I partied a lot. And when I was 15, I started dating girls. And continued to be in that lifestyle for the next 7 years. I had a lot of people speak out to me, but I ignored most of it. In April, some women that I work with started up a Bible study, and I work with my aunt, and she came to me and asked me if I would be a part of it. And I didn't want to make her have to tell them no. Her niece wasn't going to do it, and so I agreed to go, but told myself initially that the second someone said anything about my lifestyle, that I would leave and I would be done with it. I was at home reading our book, and it was talking about picking and choosing different religions, like different parts of it, and combining those and making it your religion. And it hit me that that's exactly what I was doing. First thing I did like they were going to change somehow, was search for the verses on homosexuality and where I could bend them before, and I did, arguing against people, making them sound less concrete. I couldn't. They were black and white, and I realized I was wrong for the first time about something big like that, and it kind of shook me. I knew that I was going to leave my room either a Christian, like a real surrendered Christian, or I was going to be an atheist that rejected the God of the Bible entirely. And I clung to him. I was scared. And I knew that he had died for me. Like, everything came together at one time. Like, this is what they were talking about. This is what they meant. This is why he had to die for me. This is how it affects me now. And I was grateful. I felt awful that for the first 22 years I'd acted like that. I felt awful that I'd ignored him and that I had made my own decisions. I acted like that and called myself a Christian while doing it. And he gave me mercy anyway. So that was it. I surrendered everything to him. So now I'm talking to as many people as I can, contacting friends, the ones that are still, accepting phone calls. And I'm going to school to be a biblical counselor so I can help other people. He saved me from more than just me. I'm not going to waste any of that. So I'm going to let him get the most glory for it by talking to as many people as I can. Because he is bigger and he is better than any sin. And he is enough.
All eyes are on Syria as the globalists, fearing a populist uprising, are pushing the narrative of World War III on humanity.
I want to be clear to those who try to oppose the United States. I want to be clear to those who wish to do us harm. We'll stop you, and we will beat you harder than you've ever been beaten before. Make no mistake about that. Other countries, Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea, went to school on us in hopes of defeating us at some point in the future.
Mounting tensions with possible nuclear outcomes are worldwide. We are sliding into a new Cold War with Russia as Russia ships new anti-missile systems into Syria. This after Russia held a nuclear war exercise of 40 million Russians, mobilizing 200,000 emergency services and soldiers and 50,000 pieces of equipment. Elsewhere, nuclear tensions have risen between Pakistan and India after a jihadi attack on an Indian Air Force base left 19 soldiers dead. India then entered Pakistan and surgically struck terrorist camps in Kashmir. Breitbart reported, "It is becoming increasingly clear that something serious has changed in relations between Pakistan and India as a result of repeated attacks of violence in the Indian-controlled region of Kashmir. It is clear that each country in a generational crisis era is on a trend line to become increasingly nationalistic and belligerent towards the other, and it is also clear that these trend lines will continue on the same path until they result in war. From the point of view of generational dynamics, it is not a question of if, but of when, and with the rapid rise in nationalism on both sides, when may not be too far off. Of course, with all of the saber rattling, North Korea doesn't want to be left out either. Satellite images reveal North Korea is constructing a submarine capable of getting the North Koreans' newly developed ballistic missiles within range of the United States coastline. CNN reported, "Doing a major test would be a way of trying to intimidate the incoming president. North Korea chooses particular windows that they know will gain maximum attention from the world, and the U.S. in particular. And Iran, after having plane loads of cash and sanctions lifted, is playing its hand." Washington Free Beacon reported the Obama administration misled journalists and lawmakers for more than 9 months about a secret agreement to lift international sanctions on a critical funding node of Iran's ballistic missile program as part of a broader ransom package earlier this year that involved Iran freeing several U.S. hostages, according to U.S. officials and congressional sources apprised of the situation. Breitbart wrote in a speech delivered last month in Tehran and translated this week by the Middle East Media Research Institute, Mohsen Rafidoust, who was minister of the IRGC during the 1980s in the Iran-Iraq War, added that IRGC ground forces are 5 times better than the U.S. Army, saying, "Despite all the enemy media and cultural propaganda against us, if America wants to try its luck against us, it should know that we are completely capable of mobilizing 9 million fighters." And of course, China, with its ambition to become the world's next superpower, is readying its populace for war against the United States. In a Pew Research poll conducted with Chinese citizens, just under half of the respondents said the U.S. is a major threat, according to the report, marking the highest percentage among the 7 potential threats tested on the survey. The other threats included global economic instability, climate change, cyber attacks, and the Islamic State. World War III is heating up, and the United States is on autopilot.
Now, authorities issued an alert for several Mexican states after thieves snatched potentially deadly radioactive material used for industrial radiography. The iridium-192 source, marked XF71, was inside a container when it was stolen from a truck in Cardenas, a town in southern Tabasco state.
As president, I will make it clear that the United States will treat cyber attacks just like any other attack. We will be ready with serious political, economic, and military responses.
Sometimes I'm criticized in my own country for professing a belief in international norms and multilateral institutions, but I am convinced that in the long run, giving up some freedom of action, binding ourselves to international rules, over the long term enhances our security.
Led by a weak commander-in-chief that has brought military levels down, backed by a State Department embarking on a strategy of foreign policy that has begun a brand new Cold War with Russia, bringing the globe to the brink of World War III, all in time for an October surprise.
U.S. Vice President Joe Biden says the United States and Turkey are prepared for a military solution against Islamic State in Syria if the Syrian government and rebels are unable to reach a political one.
We do know that it would be better if we could reach a political solution, but we are prepared. We're prepared, if that's not possible, to have a military solution to this operation.
The U.S. Congress has quietly moved forward with an authorization for use of military force against ISIS. Also known as an AUMF, it is required by law to conduct military operations longer than 90 days. The proposed legislation is already being referred to as a declaration of international martial law and an Unlimited War Powers Act for the president.
This resolution is a total rewrite of the War Powers Clause of the United States Constitution. Let's be clear about that. It is essentially a declaration of international martial law, a sweeping transfer of military power to the president that will allow him or her to send U.S. troops almost anywhere in the world for almost any reason with absolutely no limitations. Now, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 11 of the Constitution, it vests in Congress the responsibility to declare war. Now, many of us on both sides of the aisle have been arguing for over a year that the president right now has exceeded his constitutional authority in continuing military operations against ISIS without specific authorization from Congress.
The current military campaign against ISIS is now officially a year old and has been conducted without an authorization of force by Congress, which technically makes our campaigns in Syria and Iraq illegal. That's right, illegal. And that's why they're pushing to pass this law now, just like the other laws they pass that violate our Constitution. The USA Freedom Act, the US Patriot Act, the NDAA, so on and so forth. Illegal and nobody cares.
What's wrong with you?
Your station is corrupt.
Oh, okay. Are you some kind of a constitutionalist?
This administration attempted to propose an authorization for use of military force with restricted ground operations, but that was rejected by Congress. As you can see in this article dated January 10th, the Senate Majority Leader reiterated his objection to the President's proposed authorization of force. However, last Wednesday, that all changed. Now, all of a sudden, they want war. On top of that, yesterday we had the Vice President in front of a camera on the world stage quoted as saying expanded military operations were well in the works. So they've decided to go back to war in Iraq to send troops to Syria, and we just don't know it yet. Pockets of ISIS are now believed to exist in Mali, Libya, Egypt, Tunisia, Somalia, Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, and in most European countries. We could be bombing radicals in London the day after this authorization takes effect. Think about that. This authorization of force extends the endless war on terror to every country where we fund terrorism. Let me say that again. This authorization of force extends the endless war on terrorism to every country where we fund terrorism.
What's wrong with you?
Your station is corrupt.
Oh, okay. Are you some kind of a constitutionalist?
Can you tell us what the total number of trained fighters remains?
It's a small number, and the ones that are in the fight is we're talking four or five.
Are we going to supply air support for the people we train to fight ISIL?
We are, Senator.
Do those same people want to take a side down?
We're talking four or five.
The ones that we are supporting right now are focused on ISIL.
Do they have a goal to take a side down?
Senator, I don't know.
What do you mean you don't know?
Well, the ones we're supporting, I don't know because
it's a small number.
Do you think most people in Syria want two things? They want to fight, they want to destroy ISIL and get rid of Assad, the person who's killed 250,000 of their family? Is that really a mystery?
No, it's not.
It's not a mystery. Okay, is Russia going to fight for Assad?
Russia is fighting for Assad.
Will Iran fight for Assad?
They are doing that, sir.
Will Hezbollah fight for Assad?
They were doing that.
When the people we train to fight ISIL turn on Assad, which they surely will, are we going to fight with them to replace Assad?
I can't answer that question, Senator.
Can you answer it, Secretary Carter?
Yeah, just to be clear, let's take the...
That day is coming.
YPG, Kurds,
Do you see a scenario where the people in Syria don't take on Assad?
The people that we are equipping...
It's a small number.
Are people who live in or come from ISIL-occupied territory, and
do they want to take Assad down?
Defeating ISIL, and
do they want to take Assad down?
For the most part, they're focused on defeating.
Do they want to take Assad? Have you asked them?
We know what their intent is, and it is to fight ISIL.
Come on.
They're fighting ISIL now.
You know as well as I do, both of you know, that the average Syrian not only wants to destroy ISIL, but they're intent on destroying Assad because he's killed 250,000 of them. And here's the question for this committee. How do we leverage Assad leaving when Russia's going to fight for him, Iran's going to fight for him, Hezbollah's fight for him, and we're not going to do a damn thing to help people take him down?
The Russians are conducting military operations in the Middle East for the first time since World War II. Bombing the people that we are supporting.
It's a small number.
Steve, let me just say this.
It's an embarrassment.
So with the additional steps I ordered last month, we're speeding up training of ISIL forces.
A shocking story today, everyone, in the Wall Street Journal. It says our American dollars may be getting into the hands of ISIS.
ISIL forces.
The money is reportedly getting funneled through Iraq's central bank into Iranian banks and then possibly to terrorists.
It's an embarrassment.
What should be done, what can be done in this latest chapter of the saga of ISIS getting control over our weapons, now perhaps our money.
A secret analysis by the agency you ran, the Defense Intelligence Agency, in August 2012 said, and I quote, "There is the possibility of establishing a declared or undeclared Salafist," it's not secret anymore, it was released under FOI. The quote is, "There is the possibility of establishing a declared or undeclared Salafist principality in eastern Syria, and this is exactly what the supporting powers to the opposition want in order to isolate the Syrian regime." Your agency was saying, quote, "The Salafists, the Muslim Brotherhood, and Al-Qaeda in Iraq are the major forces driving the insurgency in Syria." In 2012, the US was helping coordinate arms transfers to those same groups. Why did you not stop that? You are basically saying that even in government at the time, you knew those groups were around, you saw this analysis, and you were arguing against it, but who wasn't listening?
I think the administration.
The administration turned a blind eye to your analysis.
I don't know if they turned a blind eye. I think it was a decision. I think it was a willful decision.
A willful decision to go support an insurgency that had Salafists, Al-Qaeda, and the Muslim
Brotherhood. A willful
Brotherhood.
decision to do what they're doing, which you have to really ask the president, what is it that he actually is doing with the policy that is in place?
Why did you allow them to do that, General? You were in post. You were the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency.
Well, those are policy.
I took the liberty of printing out that document. So let's get the obvious out of the way. One half of our government still thinks it's the 1980s and that the Cold War never ended. Then there's the other part of our government, the Obama part, the radical Islamist sleeper cell part. So on the one hand, you have the Republicans in Congress waging a Cold War, and on the other hand, you have a terrorist in the White House waging a covert war against the American people. Obama bin Laden is his name, and terrorizing the American public is his game. How do we know? Well, let's check our list to see who's been naughty or nice. Who opened the borders? Obama, check. Who set up sanctuary cities? Obama, check. Who fired half the generals in the military? Double check. Who doubled the debt? Check again. Who fucked up health care and made it twice as expensive? Triple check. Who destroyed American families? Check. Who signed free trade agreements that ships jobs overseas? Check. Who ships guns and money to terrorists? Check. Who put in place free speech zones? Check. Who militarized the police so our country could look like Nazi Germany? Check. There's one thing missing from our list, however. Obama bin Laden still hasn't dragged us into World War III. But don't you worry, they're on the road to success. They're mooning the Chinese and they're shining the Russians. They're just begging for a war. First, they staged a revolution in Ukraine, but that didn't work. Then they downed MH17 and went as far as to blame the Russians when it was obvious that they had nothing to gain from that situation. But that didn't work, so they started buzzing the Chinese military bases, and even that didn't work. But recently, they downed Flight 9268. That, however, might work. But you're saying to yourself, well, that was ISIS. I saw it on the TV. Well, ladies and gentlemen, ISIS is a subsidiary of the United States government. Haven't you been watching the news? They have been bought and paid for with our tax dollars. But why, you say, why? Obama bin Laden wants to destroy America, to avenge the injustices of his ancestors, and to set up an Islamic super state for his brotherhood. What we need here, ladies and gentlemen, is a law that allows us to recall recall our elected officials. Countries do that all the time. Even the state of California can recall their governor. And why do they do that? Because you can't trust a politician. We need to be able to dissolve government and call special elections like every other country can. We can even call it the total recall provision. If companies can fire an employee, then we should be able to fire a politician, especially one as treasonous as Osama bin Laden. That's the only way, folks. You wouldn't buy a car without test driving it first, would you? Well, we should be able to test drive our politicians just the same. We give them until summer, and if we don't like the sound they're making, well, we can just re-vote in November. It'd be the same price, with twice the guarantee. 4 years in office is far too long for a tyrant. Elected officials keep thinking they can just take us for a ride. Well, there'll be no free ride, no free lunch with the Total Recall program. Total Recall. Write your congressman or congresswoman today. That's Total Recall, putting people back in charge of their government. Total Recall. Call today.
Scrubbing back and forth, and there's something that is literally walking back and forth, independent from the trees. So, and notice this beam of light looking thing that's coming down. It walks along with it. And so the thing walks back and forth. Here it goes. Here it comes again. There it went backwards. Okay, so right as the screen goes white, there he goes. Now, I rewind again. There he goes again. This footage on the screen is of a little flying girl in Russia that a man, allegedly, who walks his dog, caught on video camera while he was walking through the woods. Several people had brought this video to my attention to use in the upcoming video entities. In truth, this video is actually child's play in comparison to the depths of some of the things coming in entities. Equally, if not in many cases, much more dramatic than this. This particular clip actually sort of bothered me because on one hand of the coin, I had one person, actually only one person out of many who have looked at the tape, who felt like it was done on wires, which I have to admit to you, the viewer, I don't know, obviously I wasn't there when the tape was made, but we analyzed the footage and we found some unusual things in it that I'd like to share with you. Now let's move the clip just a pinch further. Now this is a stabilization of the clip, so you can see the little girl up there in the air, literally floating around. Now, that's the point where the Pandora sisters take off and vanish into the forest. But if there were a harness or wires, when the little girl lowers down, that's the point where it would have to come off. So let's take a look at that. I've actually had several people now who do video editing professionally literally go through a frame at a time, and we've got 3 frames of the mother actually pulling the daughter down, or the daughter lowering down into the mother's hands. She gets the daughter, so if it's on wires, it's seamlessly done. And I'd like to take a look at what some people have claimed the wires up here in the air. What I'd like to first do is simply play the tape so you can look at it in its elements. Now notice how the dog, he's trying to get the dog's attention. Now the dog runs that way. Notice the little girl is not that direction where the dog just ran. Now he's trying to get the dog back, but the dog is looking at something there, and then it gets scared off and runs that way, okay? So this is the point where he notices our little girl, and there she is. So I have a child, here's the mother, that doesn't see the man with the camera yet, but that's actually just part of the shrubbage because it moves independently, so the little girl can be moving around it, and plus you see that the little girl is actually in front of it. So how she would be connected to it without the jacket being connected to it, and also the way the jacket moves down here. Okay, now I want you to watch right in here. I want you to watch right here on the screen as I scrub back and forth. Watch right there. Look at the legs on it as it walks away. Look on the legs. The trees are independent from the camera moving, so you're getting different angles on the trees. But this little thing here that just walked to the side, that appears to have legs on it. Middle of the night, and I got told you've got to relook at what's in this clip. Millions of Russians have watched this thing, along with people from countries all around the globe. And I can't believe no one has noticed this. So, and this was the first little artifact that was noticed in the footage. So I've got this beam of light here. Now I want you to notice, and we're going to watch this guy down here in just a moment, take a closer look at him. But I want you to watch this. It's almost as if, look how her head gets smacked back right as the beam of light is sort of maybe going through her, but suddenly the head gets kicked back, boom, like that. You even see it knock the little hoodie on her, and then I got my guy down here taking off. So coming back to her one more time. Here she goes, boom, smacks through the head, and my guy down here is darting off that direction as she is. She's up in the air. Look at the way she's floating. She's floating around. I'm going to scrub you through the clips. So there is the little girl, and she is floating around in the air. Let me move the camera up slightly so you can see above her. So there is the clip. So as we move into the woods, there is our floating little girl. Okay, and there, and you'll notice that this thing back here looks just like this thing here, which looks just like this thing here, which looks just like this thing here. Anyhow, I'll lay that decision in your hands, but the flotation that you're seeing there looks relatively natural. Now as the girl hits the ground, and again there are 3 clips in there where you're going to see the mother actually getting the girl down. So this is how quickly this happens. So that harness would have to come off if she was harnessed to something in that amount of time, where she's able to go from midair, connected to some kind of a wire, to now we're running. Now anyhow, okay, so here it goes again. Look at that. Let's take a look right in here at what our beam of light is going back and forth, coming from the top of the screen. What it's striking on the head of. Here it is right here, standing on the other side of the little girl's feet. Peekaboo. Spooky. Isn't it? It's around it accurately, and you could actually do this frame by frame with this little thing here that is wandering back and forth. There he goes again, and you can literally see the legs on it as it's walking. The leggies going back and forth, the leggies that are sort of apparition-like and come into and out of somewhere. You can see the legs on the thing moving like it's an apparition walking through the woods, going back and forth. Now let me ask you this: does this look like the head of something with a couple of little arms coming down and holding the little girl? Wait a second, hold that thought. That might not be a good enough shot. By the way, none of this is photoshopped. This comes directly from the original clips the way they were. And wait a second, right down here, here's my little thing with the 2 little leggies. That's its plump little rear end right there. Now let's go back to our pooch, Tarzan, that went berserk in the imagery. So here's our dog here, looking, he's dead staring something that way. Boom, he goes that direction. We're going to stop him right there in just a second, right where he stops and looks at something, and then he's going to change his mind and go that way real quick. Now let's see what he was looking at. Okay, so here's our dog, and here's where he stopped. Now I'd like you to look right here between my fingers. Do those look like 2 eyes to you? and a nose and a mouth right there looking down at the dog. Now when I enhance the color, and here's our dog right here, just about where he's going to stop, look this way, and then look that way and take off this direction. Let me ask you this, right in front of that dog where he's running, do these look like the two eyes of a large cat right here, particularly when the color is enhanced? And by the way, I would encourage you to look at the original footage and go frame by frame so you can actually see this thing here turn and look at the pooch before he takes off that way. So if you outline around it, this thing here sort of comes out as if it were a head. It's a strange artifact in the footage, no doubt. But more than that, looking right in its forehead, does that look like a face inside of the forehead coming out right there? And by the way, I would ask you to stop this clip at any point. Go through the footage yourself. It's like playing Where's Waldo with these unusual anomalies that look very much like human faces and demons and other things that are right inside, embedded in the footage itself, and seem to look this way and that. So here is another face within the face, and you'll find another face inside of that, along with this one and this one and this one and this one. Now watch this. So here's our unusual little stream of light with the Running Man made out of beams of light here. This is kind of a fun one. Okay, see the position he's in here. Now these little frames have been one by one. Here you go. Let's look at the next one. Uh-oh, there he is there again. There's my head now. Now I want you to. Now I'm going to zoom in on this. Tell me if you see a hand with fingers right there. Zoom in just a little bit more. Now I am correct that apparition, if I move the clip one click this way, that it's not there in this clip in the same angle. So he's right here, and then several clips later, there he is right there, looking at you. And you can either view this as the two little eyes, or you can view this as the little head looking this direction, where you got the mouth and the nose, little eye right there. A couple of clips later, when the little girl has come down into the mother's arms and they're about to run off, our apparition has morphed before dissipating. So you take a look inside this circle here. You see two eyes, two green eyes, one there and one there, and a mouth. And this thing was coming this direction, and it dissipates. So we got an angry look. That's indeed what it is on its face. Just like with any of my stuff, I lay it in your hands to decide what it is exactly in those clips and footage that it is that you're looking at. We did do our best to vet the imagery. Weren't able to actually get in touch with the actual filmmaker, and that's not for lack of trying. In fact, I even had someone to translate Russian, and obviously as well, mother and the daughter certainly couldn't get in touch with them. Can you say boo? Old Mr. Peekaboo there says hello. Now on the flip side of that coin, the video does seem to have quite a few anomalies in it. A lot, actually. The Russian flying girl, though it didn't meet the bar for inclusion into entities, but certainly sufficient for this long overdue update. It is my extremely strong opinion that the very same people running haunted houses are the same people running your UFOs. I'm Trey Smith, and if you enjoyed the theory of everything, Noah and Nephilim, I have this strange feeling that you're going to really love what's about to come out next. And accordingly, here is the itemized layout. What I have in mind next. I'm Trey Smith. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button to this channel. Thank you for watching. And make sure and also visit God in a Nutshell, where you may find a progressive and growing list of things that you might not find much of anywhere else.
It's all about the wormhole. It's all about the opening of a hole that leads to somewhere. And I have a strong notion that CERN scientists know where that hole goes. The wormhole. Wormhole technology, told over and over and over in a variety of stories, told as a tale to children and adults alike. From Pan's Labyrinth to Alice in Wonderland. From The Lord of the Rings to Doctor Who. From Farscape to Blue Exorcist to CERN Symmetry. From The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe to Tomorrowland Music Festival. Stories from all over the world, some of them hundreds of years old to ancient. They tell of the same legend. A character approaches a door. Someone crawls through a tunnel. They might fall into a hole. They might step foot into the other side. All of these tell the story. They sing a song, they dance a dance. Because an ancient knowledge has been preserved, passed down for millennia. It's been retold in books, placed into cartoons for children. It's been built into the architecture of churches. It's been shown in the walls and ceilings of epic buildings. It has been the central subject of video games. One retelling of the wormhole is found in an extremely popular manga anime called Blue Exorcist. Blue Exorcist has set records for sales in Japan and has become very popular to Western audiences. Blue Exorcist is an ongoing saga running since 2009 as a manga, and appears to be popular with both teens and young adults. But the themes in it are anything but childish. The manga anime depicts hybridity, transhumanism, CERN doors and dimensional rifts, Gehenna, a demonic invasion, dark matter, the Illuminati, and speaks extensively about a false war coming between Satan and a Messiah. Of course, this Messiah is not Jesus Christ, but the Antichrist. The basic premise surrounds two boys born as hybrid creatures, appearing as human, and yet they are part fallen angel. These two fight against Satan and have to defend the human realm against a demonic invasion, though ironically they are part fallen angel and fallen angel blood runs inside of their veins. The war depicted in Blue Exorcist is between another dimension and the human realm. The basic premise of this war is a false construct in which individuals from the other race are fighting on behalf of humanity. In the series, Satan has the idea to open a gate known as Gehenna Gate. This gate would connect the world of Gehenna, which is an abyss, and Asaya, which is the normal human world. This is the same gate that has been shown over and over and over, a gate connecting the realm of humanity with another realm. In the manga, Satan is trying to open the Gehenna Gate so that the world will be swallowed into the bottomless pit, the abyss. You'll notice that the show depicts Gehenna Gate as a large, dark circle that looks suspiciously like a black hole with a door on it. On the door is an upside-down cross. Demonic entities are hurled out of this gate and towards the earth. Some of these demonic entities look like dark particles, as you can see here in the images, and they manifest on Earth. Keep in mind this manga was written back in 2009 through 2010, before much of CERN's agenda was being covered. The characters eventually find out that the door is something called a dimensional rift. A dimensional rift is a portal, or a wormhole, that allows someone to travel through dimensions, overcoming the constraints of time and space. In another famous example, a dimensional rift would even take Dorothy somewhere over the rainbow to another dimension.
I heard of once in a lullaby.
Gone! The ruby cigarettes! What have you done with them? Give them back to me or I'll... It's too late. There they are, and there they'll stay. Give me back my slippers. I'm the only one that knows how to use them. They're no use to you. Give them back to me. Give them back. Keep tight inside of them. Their magic must be very powerful, or she wouldn't want them so badly. Come out, wherever you are, and meet the young lady who fell from a star, who fell from a star. She fell from the sky, she fell very far.
Not unsurprisingly, we also see the idea of a dimensional rift prominently portrayed in the CERN Symmetry trailer through images showing speeds of acceleration beyond that of the speed of light. How interesting that now CERN scientists are admitting that dimensional rifts or wormholes are their chief ambition. It's only been recently that the search for black holes has been made known to the public, and that they were attempting to confirm a theory called gravity's rainbow. In the Blue Exorcist anime manga series, we see references to a false Hegelian dialectic in which two sides are set up, one controlled by evil seeking to unite Gehenna with the real world, and another side controlled by the good, which seeks to bring about their Messiah. In fact, the characters representing the side of good actually comment that they are using the Gehenna Gate to usher in their Messiah. This wouldn't be the true Messiah, but a false Christ and an Antichrist. In Blue Exorcist, the dream for both the side of good and evil is to create a new world order. Satan is the universal bad guy who is trying to open up Gehenna, and the good guys are working to bring about their false Messiah, and they are allowing Gehenna Gate to be opened so that their false Messiah can be ushered in. Literally, the group depicted in the manga as working in stealth behind the scenes to open the Gehenna Gate is named the Illuminati. Their dream is to connect the realms of Gehenna and Messiah. According to this manga, it is the Illuminati who is responsible for building a machine that will mimic the opening of Gehenna Gate. The demonic war against humanity is depicted as coming out of the Gehenna Gate. If you don't know, Gehenna or Gehinnom means Valley of Hinnom and is a place where the Israelites sacrificed their children to the gods, specifically the gods Moloch and Baal. This valley lies in close proximity to the Temple Mount. Joshua 18:16 and Joshua 15:8 link the Valley of Hinnom with the Valley of Giants, and seem to allude to the fact that Gehenna might be a part of the Valley of Giants. Joshua actually names some of the giants in his book. They dwelt in Ashtaroth, according to Joshua 12:4. Is it any surprise that Blue Exorcist has named one of their characters a hideous Nephilim, Ashtaroth, who resides in Gehenna? The gate also requires a blood sacrifice in order to be opened. This is the same narrative we see in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 19, where the inhabitants of Jerusalem were condemned for sacrificing the blood of innocents or children to Baal at Gehinnom. Blue Exorcist is yet another retelling of the technology that has been passed down through the illuminated generations, the same technology that has been illustrated in the architecture and design of some of the greatest marvels known to man, and has been shown repeatedly in movies, music videos, television shows, and the likes. We are watching the unfolding of an ancient technology, an ancient ambition that is being achieved only now. While Pope Francis has been in the United States for his tour, we have heard very little about CERN. Over the past week, CERN has become an afterthought in many people's minds, but make no mistake about it, the European Organization for Nuclear Research has not been silent. And in fact, there is reason to believe that CERN scientists did, quote, break through the veil on the way to extra dimensions, though CERN has publicly denied to the media that this is their ambition. Recent articles published from September 21st through the 23rd point to the fact that CERN has established, quote, symmetry with another dimension, though particle scientists are still attempting to sort through their own discovery. Interestingly, Symmetry is the name of the highly occult song and dance trailer produced by CERN that showed the opening of the abyss, the birth of dark matter, and the strange ritual dance and interaction between dark and light that was previously illustrated in I Pet Goat. One article dated September 22, 2015, which began the Day of Atonement, is headlined with, quote, LHC Breakthrough unveils key facts about the fundamental symmetry of nature, unquote. So on the Day of Atonement, while almost every news source discussed Pope Francis landing in the United States, the results of a study confirming, quote, symmetry between our existing dimension filled with visible matter and another parallel dimension filled with dark matter was released to the public. CERN has now updated its website and suggested that another world called, quote, the Hidden Valley may actually exist, a description that sounds more like an abyss, a world made of dark matter having very little in common with the matter of our world. While CERN's website celebrates its supersymmetric conformation and hypothesized the Hidden Valley might be within reach based on their data readings, one might not realize the symbolism of a valley in the Bible. A valley symbolizes judgment, and almost every use of the word valley in the Bible refers to a place of desecration, corruption, or judgment. In Judges 6:33, we see Midianites and the Amalekites and the sons of the east, and it says that they crossed over and camped in the valley of Jezreel. Jeremiah 32:35 also talks about a valley of judgment where people are crossing through fires as a sacrifice to Moloch, seen as an abomination to our Lord. Isaiah 22:5, Micah 1:3-4, and Joel 3:14 all talk about valleys in reference to the day of the Lord and the coming of judgment. It says in Isaiah 22:5, for it is a day of trouble and of treading down and of perplexity by the Lord God of hosts in the valley of vision, breaking down the walls and crying to the mountains. Jeremiah 19:1-5 speaks on the Lord's judgment coming on the kings of Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem, a time of great calamity. It is there that Jeremiah receives a word of the Lord, that the valley of the son of Hinnom shall be renamed to the valley of slaughter. We see in Luke 3:4-5, the voice of one crying in the wilderness, prepare ye the way of the Lord, make his path straight. Every valley shall be filled, and every mountain and hill shall be brought low, and the crooked shall be made straight, and the rough ways shall be made smooth. While CERN scientists report the emergence of the Hidden Valley on the day of Yom Kippur, we must remember that valleys are often associated with judgment in God's Word. But Jesus, who died on the cross, was buried, and was bodily resurrected 3 days later, according to the Moedim, who ascended to the right hand of the Father, Our Lord Jesus is the one who can fill the valleys. He is the one who can pardon us from the coming judgment. And make no mistake about it, judgment is coming. I want to say that there has been a lot of criticism regarding some of my videos surrounding CERN's agenda to open a doorway, specifically talking about the breaking through to another dimension and the unveiling of Prometheus to our current world. Due to headlines about Pope Francis and Donald Trump, most people are unaware that CERN established on the Day of Atonement the preliminary aspiration to a much larger agenda. They cracked the door I suspected they were trying to crack, but many have heard very little about this in the media. Remember that, according to physicist David Lapointe, CERN is not hunting for dark matter or dark energy at all. The chief ambition of CERN is to use magnetic power to overcome constraints of time and space and force open a door.
So I made a magnetic scale model of the CERN dome, placed a set of them in my vacuum chamber, and fired it up. Not only did these CERN bowls form a spherical shape at the center of the reaction, but they also formed a disk of plasma around the nucleus, as well as ejection jets along the axis. After running the experiments for a few days with the CERN bowls, they were removed from the vacuum chamber and photographed, revealing the patterns you see here. These amazing patterns will also be discussed further in part 4 of this series of videos.
If you haven't watched Lapointe's Primer Fields Part 1, I encourage you to do so. In this video, David Lapointe explains why he doesn't believe in the existence of dark particles or the dark universe, but instead points out the unusual resemblance between CERN's dome and the architecture found at other historic sites, including the Capitol building in Washington, D.C., St. Peter's Basilica in the Vatican City, and a variety of Roman Catholic churches throughout the world. The publication on Yom Kippur of CERN's achievement, establishing the fundamental symmetry of our world with the hidden valley, is only the beginning of what is to come.
These amazing patterns will also be discussed further in part 4 of this series of videos. Then once it was realized that the key pattern required for this theory was found in the dome at CERN, it was also discovered that CERN was not the only place with the required pattern. The pattern has been there for centuries at the Pantheon in Rome, which has been referred to as the Vault of the Heavens. Then the required shape was also found at St. Peter's Basilica. Then one of my favorites was found at St. Paul's Cathedral in Medina, Malta. Notice the angels circling the hole at the top of the dome, and compare that to the glowing ring that is found inside the bowl-shaped magnetic field emitters in the vacuum chamber. Why are these angels on fire exactly where they should be? Much more on this dome and the others later in this series of videos. So it seems that people often want a sign from God that we are not alone. Sometimes God does give us a sign if we just pay attention. Sometimes he even puts that sign up over the Capitol of the United States of America.